Assalamu alaikum, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We are delighted to welcome you to the UAE Government Experience Exchange Talks, where we proudly share the knowledge, experiences, and best practices in the UAE and the world. Today, we will learn more about the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Center and its role in developing and enhancing the UAE's performance in the sectors of global competitiveness, statistics, and data. Allow me to welcome Her Excellency Hanan Ahli, the Director of the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Center, a government entity affiliated with the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs in the United Arab Emirates. She is leading the center works of coordination with global and local partners to implement strategic initiatives and define policies of importance to vital sectors across the UAE. She also looks after a range of policies outlined in the UAE's national agenda, with a particular focus on supporting gender balance, promoting favorable business regulations, and strengthening the performance in the UAE's public sector. Before Her Excellency's speech, I'd like to advise anyone who needs interpretation to click on the interpretation icon, and the Q&A will be at the end of the session in the Q&A icon. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
شكرا إيمان. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, fellow from the Federal Government of the UAE, welcome to this session. It's such a great honor to be virtually joining you today in order to give you a glimpse of the UAE's journey in competitiveness and its international status. With a little bit details of how does the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Authority today coordinate as a government tool in order to support the UAE performance globally. His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid always reminds us that competitiveness is a responsibility of everyone, of us as individuals and citizens of this beloved country, and also it's a responsibility of government officials as well as private sector. So all stakeholders involved, they build together the nation as well as they build together the reputation of the nation internationally. Today, our vision, which is as simple as knowledge for prosperity, is set together because we believe that knowledge could take different forms. Knowledge could take the form of policy advices. Knowledge could be data and information. Knowledge could be national statistics that we bring together to the table for decision makers in order to help the nation in its endeavor and in its vision of 2071, where we wish to be the best country in the world. Usually when we monitor competitiveness reports, we monitor them because the methodology of these reports offer us a good learning lessons and a good venues of practices that we can reach to, or also it's a good window or a library, I would say, of best practices from around the world. So today, for example, when we say Finland is leading the World Happiness Report, it means that there is something in the policies or in the tools that Finland is adapting as a government that could be of inspiration to us. We in the UAE are very much keen on and committed not only to inspire good models around the world, but also to learn from other models globally, because we are particularly believing in connecting minds to shape better future for everyone. And that our core business at the Federal Competitiveness and Statistics Authority focuses on three main portfolios where we support the government in its competitiveness sector, which means we have a team dedicated to do two main objectives. The first function of this team is actually to monitor competitiveness reports and to use them as a policy guiding framework, which means, in other words, we use them as an audit tool in order to know where are our existing gaps, whether it's a data gap, whether it's a regulatory gap or an enhancement that we need to do, or it's a dialogue with the citizens. It's a communication bridging the government with the private sector or with the community. The second function of the competitiveness sector is monitoring global trends, understanding them, and then putting together a good positioning or forward-looking position for the UAE and identifying the opportunities that lay forward for the government. The second key portfolio that we manage is the statistics and digital data enabling. And this is our fundamental core business, where we work together with local statistical offices in order to ensure that we build a national statistics system, which is enabled, which produces a comprehensive, timely, and accurate data that reflects the reality of the UAE, and that helps us also measure the impact of all the different policies that the government is undertaking. The third portfolio is the Sustainable Development Goals. We are honored at this center to be also serving as a secretariat for the National Committee of the Sustainable Development Goal, which is a committee established in 2017 under the leadership of Her Excellency Reem bint Ibrahim Al-Hashimi, with membership from 17 different government organizations. They work together on the governance structure of the Sustainable Development Goals, and we support them on the reporting and monitoring of the goals because of the nature of our organization. Well, because competitiveness is a cross-cutting, and as we said, it is the responsibility of the individuals, of the society, as well as of the public sector. We make sure in all our operations, we do have pay attention to all our multiple stakeholders, be it stakeholders from the private sector, which are data provider for us to inform national statistical numbers, especially on the economic sector, as well as some social demographic related to labor force. We make sure that we are also connected to the society with different initiatives and programs. We make sure that we coordinate and orchestrate data sharing and exchange with all the confidentiality and classification metrics with the public sector. And we also make sure that we work hand in hand with international organizations, because there is a good level of international standards that are already available universally. So we want to make sure whatever data we are producing at a national level is also readable and comparable internationally. We are proud that with all our efforts today, the UAE stands at a very good position globally. We have passed more than 2,400 regulations, and also we have produced more than 900 national data sets, as well as open data tables. With that, alhamdulillah, the UAE is today the first globally in 186 indicators, competitiveness indicators, and it's at the top globally in 508 indicators. In our journey, we have an annual work program for competitiveness. And for those who are working on competitiveness reports, they know why we have an annual work program, because many of the competitiveness reports, they get published annually. And sometimes there are a revision of the methodologies, or there are new indicators that get introduced, especially now with the Sustainable Development Goals and the annual revision of applicable and non-applicable indicators. So we have adapted our system to build a roadmap for an annual national work plan or action plan with the right stakeholders. And therefore, we have defined in the UAE model competitiveness as the ability to balance between productivity as well as the quality of life. So our leadership has said to them, prosperity itself, and to reach to that level of prosperity, is not going to be accepted if it was only by focusing on productivity. Also, the citizens and the quality of life for everyone who lives here in the UAE is in par of the same level of importance with the productivity. And therefore, we make sure that whenever we review and we make analysis of the competitiveness report, we ensure having a good mix of indicators that are both social, environmental, as well as they are economic indicators. In our work plan, we have more than 1,300 international indicators that we monitor and we review annually. And those indicators, we also have, we use them as a policy guiding framework. So we use them as a way to audit all our policies, as well as to audit our quality of data and statistical production. Today, the UAE is proudly leading 21 reports out of 22 reports that we consider as a core report. leading the Middle East and North Africa region. We have a lot of learning modules that we are happy and open to be sharing with organizations and with countries around the world. And yesterday I was in Azerbaijan actually having a discussion with them. And there is always a confusion, and I kept hearing this question recurring. Why we want to be the #1 globally? The thing is, we are never obsessed about the destination, which is the #1 globally. But the actual commitment or the actual joy in our journey is that we are keen on producing a new level or a new horizon of development and competitiveness worldwide. So whenever we say, for example, in the passport index, the UAE is the first globally, because we know that the value of the accessibility of these countries around the world for our citizens is fundamentally important. So it's the essence of these reports, but it's not the destination or the rank itself. In the Industrial Performance Index, there is a big national task force today are working on promoting our industrial sector, for example. A lot of the learnings we get from other peer countries, as well as from UNIDO and the World Bank, who are publishing these reports, because the design of the methodology gives us also some highlights on the important area that in our national measure, we need to pay attention to it. So it's a good learning exercise that we gain from these mix of competitiveness indicators. If I may share as an example, and also to illustrate how the work plan actually happened. If we pick from the reports we just saw, a report that is published by the World Bank, Women, Business and the Law. The UAE has a good trajectory journey ever since 2019. To be honest, allow me to share with you the story of this report. The report in 2018 was celebrating the 10-year anniversary, the first decade. This report in nature was only a data collection exercise, but they never reported or published the score of nations, neither did they give an explicit ranking of these countries. In 2018, which is the first year they decided to celebrate, they said, let us publish the score of countries. And in 2018, already the government of the UAE had 50% women in their parliament. We had 1/3 of our ministers are actually female ministers. In the same year, we were drafting the 1/3 quota of our corporate board to be women representation. But imagine when the report was published, the UAE had 29.3 points out of 100 in that report. And therefore, we were at the bottom of best performing countries when it comes to gender equality. And here is the phrase when we say it's an audit exercise. We were honestly surprised with the score itself, because the reality was saying something else. We have women working on oil fields. We have women working on immigration centers 24/7, late night shifts. We have great ministers who are leading international portfolios like the SEAS mission, for example. So the reality was saying a lot of women entrepreneurs are there. We have the first female CEO leading a bank, actually. So the numbers did not reflect our reality. When we went in understanding the methodology of the report, which is 100% looking on the articles of the law only, without collecting any data from the practices. And therefore, so we understood the methodology. We also worked with the World Bank to review all our legal bases and to understand where are the loopholes. For the UAE, also the World Bank has endorsed that we have a very unique exercise, because we had to work on refreshing our regulations. And the exercise was actually not pushing in 2019 actual reforms as in new reforms, because the reality was already at a further speed, at a faster speed than our regulation. So we had done a lot of regulatory reforms, including in the labor law and personal status law, where the law had to catch up the reality. Things like women working late night shifts, the law was saying women are prohibited from working late night shifts out of protection for women. But then we have introduced or cleaned up these regulations. The second thing that we've done also as a new reform is introducing paternity and maternity leave. And the UAE is among extremely few countries worldwide to introduce paternity leave, which is a leave extended to both the mother and the father during the first 8 months of their child, when they can take up to 5 paid working days to give care to their children. And alhamdulillah, with all the reforms that has continuously been enacted, and with all the learnings that we gained from either the experts at the World Bank or other countries that we work directly with, we managed to score today 82.5 points out of 100, which makes the UAE the first country in the Middle East and North Africa region. As another example, it's always with competitiveness reports or international indices. Whenever we review the methodology, we need to understand, what does the methodology require? Does it require data and statistics? Does it require regulations to be more adaptive and more modernized? Or does it require surveys, or it requires a bridging between what the government is doing and all the procedures need to be greatly and clearly clarified to the private sector or the citizen. In the IMD report, which is the Global Competitiveness Yearbook, the IMD actually built the report based on inputs from these 3 pillars: data, regulation, and surveys. Alhamdulillah, we are proud that the UAE is the first globally in 19 indicators in the IMD report, and is the 12th globally. And actually, we are looking for next week, inshallah, the new publication will be launched, and we hope to improve in the ranking to reach the top. Our target is reaching the top 10 globally. With the indicators, we classify the indicators based on the pillars of the working programs, and then we do form national task force, and we give them a clear explanation of the methodologies for them to identify where are the gaps or where are the areas that they could learn from the methodology and adapt nationally. We are proud with the different successes of the National Task Force that happened over the last years. The UAE tops the 5 globally in several key sectors. We do publish our reports to the cabinet every 6 months. Alhamdulillah, when it comes to government-related indicators, the UAE is the first globally when it comes to adaptability of government policy to changes and the agility of the government. If we take the finance and taxation, there is a good efficiency of the government spending, and the list goes on, alhamdulillah. Every year we work on a very specific calendar. Our calendar starts actually from January every year until usually October by year end. Why did we have this calendar? Because we made sure that whatever reforms we are working on, or whatever data gaps or data correction or data introduction, because the reports help us also to highlight a new data requirement to be collected, and the teams are working on developing these standards. So we work in also compliance with international data custodian agencies, the like of World Health Organization, the like of the International Labor Organization, and so on and so forth. And we are also a partner institution in distributing surveys with the IMD and with the World Economic Forum. So therefore, we make sure that our national task force work in compliance with these deadlines. That's in summary who is the Federal Competitiveness Statistics Authority, and that's in summary why competitiveness or international reports matters, or how do we actually operate and run the modus operandi for the nation. I hope you have got a glimpse of inspiration from this model, and I'm happy to address any question that you may have. Thank you. Iman, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Your Excellency, for this rich and insightful presentation. Let's open the door for any questions. Anyone has a question, please do not hesitate to write it in the Q&A, not on the chat, in the Q&A icon. Thank you so much. You're most welcome, Renee. Anyone has a question? Yeah. Okay, so we received a question saying that with all the indicators and reports out there, how do you choose which one to go for?
Excellent question. With all the reports, first, we understand the report publisher. We do understand the report methodology and objectives. We do compare it with our national priorities. Also, then we do the mapping and the filtration. Because there are some good reports, but they might not necessarily be matching our national priorities. And these would be reports that we monitor just to see, but they will not go into our official working plan and operations as a national task force.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.
Any other questions? Ahmed al-Naimi, I have to greet him from Georgia. أحمد كيف الحال؟ عساكم بنعمة وخير يا رب العالمين. I bumped into Ahmed في World Government Summit and they are doing remarkable work with Georgia and I hope to see them inshallah quite soon.
Inshallah, beautiful. Okay, another question. How do you ensure the government reaches top 5 or 10 in the indicator?
For every indicator, after analyzing the nature of the indicator, the methodology, understanding where are the gaps. So usually we also have, after creating our due diligence, we say, why is the performance, for example, low? Is it because a data correction? And when I say a data correction, I will share with you an example that happened to us. Through the Human Development Report, there is an index called Gender Inequality Index. And the Gender Inequality Index, there is an indicator called Adolescent Fertility Rate. The adolescent fertility rate gets produced from the registries of our Ministry of Health in collaboration with local departments of health. And it gets reported on an annual basis to WHO. We realized that the number in our registries back in the time in 2017 was, in the 2020 report, was 5.3 as a rate. And then in WHO was reporting 29 as adolescent fertility rate. So we have built a national task force to understand where is the gap happening. And therefore, the team has worked together on reviewing all our registries, reviewing all the data mainstreams, and also reviewing, then we called in WHO to the same task force with the table to understand their model. And then WHO said, we have a model analysis. Whenever we receive the data from the national offices, we plug it in the model and the model generates. After 9 months of continuous dialogue with the WHO and the local departments of health, we realized that the model that is in the WHO is missing 10 years statistical data for the UAE. It was the period from 2006 all the way to 2016. And the national teams managed to plug in, to provide the WHO with these data sets And therefore, it immediately actually normalized the rate that gets published by the WHO to the rates that are similar to what our registries produce. And so this exercise by itself, we call it a data correction. So we analyze the report, we analyze the indicator, and then we identified the challenge. The challenge was that the reported figure in the organization does not match with the reality of the UAE. And then there are another group of indicators where we know that the values that are reported for the UAE, they reflect our realities. Here, where we work with the National Task Force, where we give them ambitious targets. And usually, after understanding the methodology and also understanding from the national team the challenges of improving, we give them those ambitious numbers to reach up to, and we call them M1 contracts. The third way that we do analyze or use the data, the competitiveness report with, is the data production, which means that in some international reports, we realize that there are missing data or not available data. In this case, we do create a national task force, and we ensure that we have representation from the relevant federal and local authorities. And after the discussion, we understand further why is the data is not available. And is it a matter of initiating a new survey to collect the data and start reporting it? Is it a matter of enhancing and developing our registries to reach? And in that case, the target will be to start producing the data with a certain deadline rather than to improve the data from point A to point B. So these are three cases that are extremely different. Target setting is one thing. Ensuring that we reflect UAE reality and correcting our data is another thing. Ensuring producing comprehensive and data or new data sets for all the information that are not available, and all of them in the condition that they match the national priority of the government.
Thanks a lot, Your Excellency. We have many questions from Rwanda. They ask, how did you choose the indices to track, and is it of importance of national priorities, and did you get the leadership support on that? How do you build these number of indices?
So how to select them, and then
yes.
Leadership support, and the last question?
How do you build up to this number of indices?
Okay. On the report criteria selection, the reputation of the organization matters, because we need to understand there are competitiveness reports that gets published periodically, and there are marketing reports. The difference between the two competitiveness reports, they have a reputable organization, they have great experts or intellectual capabilities to build these frameworks, and also there is a huge learning benefits that you can gain from these reports. The marketing reports are one of media reports, but then even if you decided to pick up that indicator and it was in alignment with your national priority, there will be difficulty of managing your trend and evaluating your progress over the years. That's on the how question or the report criteria, and we are happy to, through the Government Experience Exchange Program, to share with you and to circulate the report selection criteria for the UAE, and then you are open, and we are happy to assist you on making it on a context that fits your national priorities as well. In terms of leadership support, yes, definitely. Actually, the leadership in the UAE, we are blessed with clear visionary leaders. We know exactly where is the direction of the government from the news, from the UAE government media websites. And therefore, whenever we do have a national priority and we matched it with international indices, we do have access, being in the center of the government through the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs, to the relevant ministers and to His Highness the Prime Minister. We publish our reports to them, and they take actions if need be accordingly. In terms of how did we build up to this number, the 1,300 plus indicators that we monitor, we have a dedicated team members that are, I would call them reports scouts. They keep looking at the different topics. Whenever the government, for example, publish a new portfolio, the portfolio of artificial intelligence, the portfolio of happiness, quality of life, and well-being, were more recently introduced. Today, we are talking about the portfolio, the ministerial portfolio of the future of government. So whenever we have a new ministerial portfolio, we make sure that we search and look around for good indices that could help us audit or build on the new measures that could enhance the work plan of this relevant ministry.
Thanks, Your Excellency. We have an interesting question. How you were able to motivate the private sector to work closely with you to help achieve your goals?
Excellent. I think we did very little magic in comparison to the time of Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, honestly. The Prime Minister is very much engaged and very much involved with the private sector, and with the unique structure of the UAE, we usually have continuous dialogue with them. Sometimes it's a casual dialogue on bicycles even, or in his majlis, which is the area where it's open for them to visit and to share their opinions. They can openly share their feedback about new policies and so on. The second incentives that the private sector have with the new way of carrying our regulation, starting from late 2020, all regulations that get passed are consulted and co-designed or developed with the private sector, because we want to ensure that private-public partnership is actually the way forward for the future of the government. The third element, we always make sure through the relevant ministries, be it Ministry of Economy, Ministry of Industry, that we have an open dialogue with the private sector where we understand their needs, and we also allow them to join us as solution drivers for a lot of government services and a lot of government policy that will be enacted, which will affect them, either the quality of life and the environment that we are offering them here in the UAE, or also it will affect their business operation and the sustainability of it.
Thanks, Your Excellency, for this comprehensive answer. We have another question from Rwanda. Which countries or regions do you benchmark, and on which strategies or reforms?
Excellent question, but no short answer. All the bundle of countries, you will be surprised to see great practices everywhere. The moment you are clear of your national priorities, most of the time you might want to get inspired by other models, but most of the time you are keen on creating a model that could get exported to the world as well. So here in the UAE, we are open to learn from a lot of models, but we also, for every model that we start experiencing, learning, understanding, we like to apply innovation to it in order to see how can human brains actually take us to a new level of performance or greatness. And this is, I would say, the inspiration that keeps us moving always and innovating and creating a new horizon and a new competitiveness level universally.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. There is a question from Tbilisi from His Excellency Ahmed al-Nuaimi. What are the best platforms to share these lessons learned with other countries?
And the easiest platform is government experience exchange model.
I wouldn't say it.
The best platform. The second platform would be, I am personally very proud of the World Government Summit, which is an annual platform. It's an annual government actually gathering, if I may call it, happens February every year. The uniqueness about the government, the World Government Summit, it brings government officials from all over the world, but it also hosts the private sector as well as international organizations. The majority of the topics that gets discussed, honestly, are future-driven topics, but there are also great practices that are designed as good practices from different governments from all over the world, or great experimentation that could help influence government reforms and make them more ready for the future. And
Thank
also,
you so much.
it has a lot of information.
Of course. It's a reference for all of us.
Allah يحفظكم.
Okay, so I think we'll give a few more minutes if anyone else has any question before we conclude.
I see a question. The question and answer, are they all of national importance and thus they have support from the leadership?
Yeah.
Yes, the answer is yes. All the reports that we follow are in alignment with the national priority, and therefore we do have keenness and a very clear direction of how to move forward.
Thank you so much. Is there any other questions? Yeah, okay, we receive another question. What are you doing in preparation for the first edition of the World Bank's new flagship? Be ready.
Good question. First of all, the audience needs to know that World Bank Business Enabling Environment is a new report or is an experimentation report that will be replacing the World Bank Ease of Doing Business report. Honestly, as a country, I would say we were monitoring the Ease of Doing Business report quite closely, and we've learned a lot of our innovations in the business procedures, including the introduction of the one-stop shop, for example, for business registry, were inspired by the methodology of the Doing Business report. And today, mashallah, the national teams has even excelled and went beyond the doing business best practices to create the virtual stop shops as well as the electricity waivers for businesses and many other innovative services. When it comes to the business enabling environment, it's still a work in progress by the World Bank end. And I would say at the moment we have very much, we are anticipating the outcome of the new methodology, and we as an authority also anticipating the new methodology. How would it be? What changes would they create? They are still, the data collection exercises are still a work in progress. So there isn't much information available at the moment for us to make a solid decision on how would we be dealing with the new report. Inshallah, once the report is up and running and solid, because it's important for us before picking the report to be among our national priority or among our radar and monitoring platform, that the report needs to be stable and it should be published on the same methodology for quite a number of years. So we are assuming that post 2026, there will be better visibility on the business enabling environment, and hence then we will make the decision on the participation of the report.
Thanks, Your Excellency. Another question, how do you ensure government's track it is going towards the right way to reach the top 5 or 10?
Okay, that's a good question. It's important to know that ranking is the secondary here in the UAE, and it's important to know that we use ranking as a policy guiding framework, but it's not the vision. We have our national agenda. We actually have a national agenda, Vision 2071, where we have forward-looking society, forward-looking economy, forward and two other pillars. And we also have our 10 years plan. So we recently launched the 2030-31 vision of the UAE, and that's where all our national priority, all our targets are set. In the ranking, we never said we want a target. We never said the first globally ranking indicators has to be 500 indicators. But we always say, okay, what are the competitiveness indicators that are in alignment with national priority? Let's use them as diagnostic metrics. Let's see where are we standing, what we can learn, and then how can we improve? So this is the question, and therefore it's never about accumulation. The accumulation is the result of the great learning that we have adapted through the journey itself.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Are we allowed to share an Arabic version of the presentation?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, okay.
By all means. And if it
Yeah.
will help them, we can also, our customer service is very, very responsive. Even if they have further question, they can drop a line to info@fcsc.gov.ae and they'll get a response within 3 days maximum.
Great, excellent. I think, Abir, if you share with us your email, we can share with you also the presentation. Anyone else would like to highlight any question? So we have 2 more minutes. Dr. Abdulsalam Al-Hamadi is thanking you. Barakallah fikum.
Okay. I should thank everybody actually for their participation. I know it's too many, especially the national audience. It's after working hours, so I'm happy to see a lot of national representation attending. And to many who are internationally participating, it's such a great honor to know that people are interested on the topic of competitiveness of the UAE and are keen on learning from our model. I hope my intervention today and this Jeep talk has introduced you to a new perspective, or at least inspired you in a way that you can carry forward your operation, inshallah, with a little bit of light from the UAE. Allah يحفظكم كلكم.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you so much for your generosity and comprehensive answers. I know you were in a business trip, and we just tried to make the best of this session, and you did a great job. Thank you so much, and thank you for the active participation from everyone, from the attendees, and wish to see you again in another insightful presentation.
مشكورين. الله يحفظكم. مع السلامة.
شكرا. بارك الله فيك.
Thank you everybody.
Thank you.